on the SDGs. My name is Peter Wollaert. I'm the Managing Director of CIFAL Flanders. CIFAL is linked with UNITAR. UNITAR is the Institute for Training and Research of the United Nations based in Geneva. If you want to have some more information, you can see here the website link. They offer online trainings on a global scale in different global languages on, for example, this topic and sustainability, but also on human rights or peace or other important global topics. So welcome. We are part of a global network of, at the moment, 31 CIFAL centers around the globe. And maybe there is a CIFAL center nearby the place where you are working at the moment for Basics group. So check on the website. Some of the CIFALs are new of last year in a startup phase. Others exist for more than 10 years as our center. So all those centers need to deliver qualitative trainings on UN texts, on resolutions of the UN. And for CIFAL Flanders, we have 5 basic texts to work on. That is the new urban agenda for cities and municipalities, UN Global Compact for companies, the guiding principles on business and human rights, also for companies, and then the key text for all CIFAL centers and for UNITAR around the globe is the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, Transforming Our World. And in this text, there are the 17 SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. Next to this text, there is also the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, how to finance sustainable development throughout the world. So those are the 5 most important texts that we use in our training sessions in person and online. And we do this in several forms, masterclasses, boot camps, panel debates, workshops, keynote speeches, and also this year for the first time, a summer academy at the end of August in Belgium. Okay, let's start. We have 5 key questions when we are working on sustainability and companies and organizations. The first question is your organization, is Basics Group future-proof? Is it a trend watcher? Is Basics Group knowing what are the important trends in society for their businesses? And this is very important. Is Basics a trend watcher for local trends, but even so for international, even global trends? The second question is Basics part of problems or part of solutions when we look at societal responsibility? So this is the question about impact. Where does Basics want to have a positive impact towards society? And more important, maybe, do we know at Basics where we have possible negative impacts on society, locally or internationally? Maybe a more complicated question is, do we know where the possible negative impacts are through the fact that we want to have positive impact in our core businesses? So a very important question, do we know our impacts as organization, locally, internationally, from a problem side and from a solution side? Third question is, do we want to be a change maker? How innovative is Basics? And innovation will be a key word also in this Agenda 2030 and the SDGs. Fourthly, is Basics a game changer? Do you want to be a game changer? And game changer means that we are playing in the field of transition. We all know that with the current concepts of business, the current concepts of producing things, of making things, that a lot of those concepts will need to be reviewed from a transition perspective to be more sustainable for the next coming years. And last question, a very important question for today. Do we want to be future-proof in the sense of being SDG proof? So that means, do we want to be a co-creator of the Sustainable Development Goals? And when we summarize this text of the UN in one picture, we can do this in the format of a SDG wheel with 5 pillars, with several SDGs and with subtopics. And that's the wheel we will use at the end of this working session, because this can be used in all sorts of projects of basics. So those are the 5 key questions of this presentation. But as I said, we will start with a Mentimeter questionnaire. And the first question for the Mentimeter is mentioned here. So please scan the QR code that you see here on the screen, or you go to menti.com and you enter the code 54342524. So 2 possibilities to enter in menti.com, and entering by the code that is mentioned on the screen, or scanning the QR code also here on the screen. Because we have a first question for you, and if everything goes well, you will find this question behind this code. Which words or concepts do you associate with sustainability? So scanning the QR code or entering menti.com and using the code that is mentioned here, 54, 34, 25, and 24. I checked with my colleague Sophie, who is helping us during this workshop, whether she sees if answers are coming in.
Yes, indeed, answers are coming in.
Thank you so much, Sophie. So we go to the question, which words or concepts do you associate with sustainability? If you hear the word sustainability, what are concepts, words that you want to link with it? Again, scanning the QR code or going to menti.com.
I also put the code in the chat for people who are arriving a bit later or that need the code in the next Mentimeter questions.
Perfect. Very important what you just said, indeed, Sophie. So for all participants today, we will use this Mentimeter a couple of times during this session. The code remains the same throughout this workshop. So, and therefore this code is also put in the chat. And as I said, so the question is, give maximum 3 words or concepts that you link with the word sustainability. For people arriving now in the workshop, be welcome. Please note to mute your microphone during the session so that we have a smooth progress of this workshop. Thank you so much. We are 37 participants at the moment, and I checked with Sophie how many people answered already this question.
We have 21 answers.
Okay, then we just wait another minute. So please go to menti.com with this code or scan the QR code that is here on the screen. Okay, I propose to that you can take over my screen, Sophie, to show us the results of this first question. So 27 colleagues responded on this first Mentimeter question. And so when we look at this word cloud, we see the different aspects of the answers. So the bigger the word is, the more this word was mentioned during the questionnaire. So that means most of the participants link sustainability with the environment, with the idea of future, with renewable energy, with green, ecology, recycle. So indeed, a lot of aspects of what we call environmental sustainability. We see also reuse, biodiversity, climate, green concepts, green construction, etc., etc. And I double check whether we can see also maybe some links with what we call social sustainability. So the social pillar of sustainability, indeed, well-being is part of the concept of social sustainability. Indeed, but the overall words I see are in line with ecological or environmental sustainability. I also see, for example, zero emission, circular economy, stop and remove pollution, reduce CO2, biodiversity, etc., etc. So this is very important, dear colleagues, of basics, that indeed, in general, sustainability is linked with what we call is linked with ecological sustainability, environmental sustainability. We will see through this lecture, and based on the text of the UN, the Agenda 2030, that sustainability has also to do with other aspects of progress in society. And that is what we want to elaborate today. Thank you so much, Sophie, to share this screen with us. I will take over.
You're welcome.
Again, the PowerPoint. Can you give me access, please?
Normally you can do it yourself, but let's check.
Okay. So thank you for this first question. If everything went well, you see now the slide with sustainable development. Yes, Sophie? Yes, we do. Okay, perfect. So very important first step in this introduction towards the SDGs. When we talk about sustainability, this is as concept linked with sustainable development. Sustainable development was defined in 1987 through a conference of the United Nations where Gro Harlem Brundtland was the chair. And at that conference, sustainable development was defined as the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So here you see that sustainable development as broader concept where we derive the word sustainability from has to do with meeting the needs of people. meeting the needs of people means taking into account human rights. Human rights are in the core of sustainable development, without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So indeed, the word future was also mentioned in the questionnaire of the Mentimeter. It's about organizing a society in such a way that what we do today can also be done tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, in such a way that our children and next generations can be in line with the expectations that they have for the next years to come. So sustainability has to do with the concept sustainable development. And sustainable development is a very broad concept through the years, and we can apply this on a company level. And the most used model to translate sustainable development on company level is the model of John Elkington. So the model of the triple bottom line. The triple bottom line says a company that wants to be future-proof, that wants to be in line with sustainability, should take into account not only the profit side of the company, very important, but also the social side and the environmental side of the company. So that means we have an aspect of social sustainability, environmental sustainability, and financial, economic sustainability. And this is the concept that was used last decades in a lot of companies to define the idea of sustainability. And based on this, the European Commission had launched the definition in 2004 to say the corporate responsibility towards society is a concept whereby companies integrate social and environmental concerns in their business operations and in their interaction with their stakeholders on a voluntary basis. So a definition of 20 years ago, integrating social and environmental concerns and the interaction with stakeholders. And that is also very important in the history of sustainable development, that it's not only about that triple bottom line, it's also about strategic management on the level of the company to include the feedback of stakeholders towards the business case and towards the sustainability of a company for future years to come. So I think we have already two elements. At the one hand, the triple bottom line, at the other hand, the importance of stakeholder management. Why is the stakeholder management idea important? Because we saw last decades a lot of what we call greenwashing. A lot of organizations, companies claimed to be environmental friendly, claimed to be in line with human rights and social issues, but at the bottom line, the idea of a financial bottom line was key. Please don't misunderstand me. Of course, the performance of a company is first of all also a financial performance, but at the same time we see that the risks that are linked with not respecting ecological sustainability or not respecting social affairs can harm the company and can cost a lot of money. So this can also be seen from a risk management perspective. And for example, in Europe, the international company McDonald's just changed colors, red into green, to give an idea of more environmental friendly initiatives at the fast food restaurants. So we saw last decades a lot of initiatives that are can be seen more as greenwashing than as real sustainability. And we see also that the list of companies that are accused of greenwashing becomes longer and longer. So it's very important to take this into account, that more and more NGOs, locally, internationally, but also governments and others are watching very critically towards the claims that a company is making in the field of sustainability, linked with sustainable development, so linked with environmental and social human rights disclosures. And therefore, we saw an evolution in the debate and in the definition of the corporate social responsibility. And in 2010, the ISO 26000 was launched. You all know ISO norms. Basics is using several ISOs, the 40001, the 9001, and others. But there are also ISO guidelines. And one of those ISO guidelines is the ISO 26000, defining the societal responsibility of an organization, of a company. And what is said here, the societal responsibility of an company, of an organization, is its responsibility for its impact of its decisions and activities on society and the environment through transparent and ethical behavior that contributes to sustainable development. So here you see a combination of the aspects I've mentioned already. The word impact. Do we know our impact locally and internationally from a positive and from a possible negative perspective? Here you see the link with society, social sustainability, and the environment, ecological sustainability, that contributes to sustainable development. And you see also here a new element enters in the definition: transparency and ethical behavior. Very important, and that is also part of the Agenda 2030 of the UN. Sustainability is not only about action, about what we need to do, it's also about how we do things, whether we do things in an ethical way, and whether we communicate about those things in a transparent way. And that will be the link with sustainability reporting. So here you see new aspects. We have the keyword impact, the link with the triple bottom line, its impact on society, the environment, and the business case. And there is a link with ethical behavior. And all this needs to contribute to sustainable development. And of course, that means that we need to know what is sustainable development. So based on this ISO 26000 guideline, also the European Commission changed its definition into the responsibility of enterprises is the responsibility for their impact on society, and outlines what an enterprise should do to meet that responsibility. The key word, ladies and gentlemen, today in the field of taking care of sustainability in a company is impact, knowing your impact, your potential positive impact, but also your possible negative impact through the business case you develop. Very important topic. And so indeed, it's about impact towards the concept sustainable development. That means that we also need to define what is sustainable development as of today. And this is formulated in this Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, launched in 2015. So we had a key definition in 1987 through the conference with Grohagel and Brundtland. We have and had a lot of different methodologies or tools or concepts to define sustainable development for companies, the most used one, the triple bottom line. What we didn't have was a framework, a reference framework, not only about topics, which sort of topics we should deal with, but also with goals, a goal-setting framework. So what are the ambitions? What should be the ambition level of the world to indeed reinforce sustainable development throughout our societies? And also companies are asked to be co-creator in solving environmental and solving social issues. And these are the SDGs. The SDGs, text, the resolution text that was approved in September 2015 at the General Assembly in New York, approved by all 193 member states of the UN. And that is very important. Ban Ki-moon, the architect of this text, wanted two important goals. At the one hand, an ambitious text on sustainable development for the year 2030. Secondly, all UN member states should approve this text. And this is, of course, a very important challenge to combine those two ambition levels. Everybody needs to sign, needs to agree to sign, and at the same time, we want to have an ambitious text. And this is the text of the General Assembly. It's called Resolution on Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And you see directly, immediately on the front page, the ambition level. It's about transformation of the world. So that means it starts already with the idea of thinking outside the box. We need to rethink the current models. It's about transition and transformation. We know that the current models of producing, of consuming things are not sustainable in the long term, not from an environmental perspective, not from a social perspective, etc. The text in English, the original version, is a text of 35 pages, so it's not that long. And when we look at the structure of this text, we have 4 elements. The first one is we have in this text not 3, but 5 dimensions of sustainable development. The 5 P's. I will come back to that later on. So 5 pillars of sustainable development. Secondly, those 5 pillars of sustainable development are having an overview of 17 different topics, the 17 sustainable development goals, and each goal has targets. At the one hand, measurable targets, and at the other hand, means of implementation. So not only KPIs, but also means of implementation. And then last but not least, we have a set of indicators, how to measure the progress of this text. So it's a very important text that defines sustainable development since 2015 until 2030. If we look at the different elements, the first element is indeed the element of the 5 P's. So that means we come from the triple bottom line approach of John Elkington at the late 90s. We go now to a conceptualization of sustainable development with 5 P's. You see planet, indeed, you see people, profit becomes prosperity. It's about economic financial investment. And there is the new P of partnership and the new P of peace. So this is the conceptualization, the 5 dimensions of sustainable development since the Agenda 2030. I will come back on that later. Second level, 17 concrete goals, 17 SDGs with concrete KPIs, how to achieve those different topics. This is the official picture of the 17 goals. I will elaborate on this, that we will reshuffle a little bit this framework to link the 17 SDGs with the 5 pillars of sustainability. And then in the text, for example, for SDG 8 on decent work and economic growth, indeed, in the text is said we need economic growth in the world, but it needs to be linked with job creation and with the concept of decoupling. Economic growth cannot harm anymore the environment. So we need to decouple growth with harming the environment. So you have, at the one hand, numbers, the targets, the KPIs, and at the other hand, we have the means of implementation. What are the means to support sustainable development? And that means in the text, you have 5 means. You need money, finance, you need technological support, you need capacity building. So that means also, for example, this training, knowledge building. You need a good system. That means you need a management system to follow up this topic. And indeed, the text is very clear on this. International trade, when organized in a social, environmental friendly way, will help sustainable development in the world. So 5 means of implementation. And last but not least, you have a set of indicators. Of course, the indicators in the text are meant for governments, because this is a political text in the first place to use by governments. We will see that there are several initiatives to link this text with companies. And one of these initiatives is the SDG Compass website, where they translate the SDGs towards businesses. A very important website with, for example, an overview of indicators that companies in a specific sector can use to measure their impact on society through the SDGs. Let's overview the several SDGs. And here you see the link between, at the one hand, one of the pillars, in this case, the pillar of people, the P of people. So that means social sustainability, with 5 concrete SDGs. One on poverty alleviation, one on hunger, but see the full text of the definition of this SDG 2. It's about hunger, but it's also about food security. It's about nutrition. For example, all sorts of malnutrition are mentioned in the text to avoid, and then promoting also sustainable agriculture. So you see, we really need to work on the level of the definitions of the SDGs to really understand each of those 17 SDGs. SDG 3 is about good health and well-being. So that means, indeed, at the one hand, well-being in a more broader concept, but also health. Think about safety and health on the work floor within the context of basics. Then for quality education, also here 2 pillars. At the one hand, indeed, formal education, promoting quality education formally. And at the other hand, very important, the link with lifelong learning. So that means in the text it said, every citizen in the world should be in a program of lifelong learning. We can learn every day as people. And for example, a company can help a lot in offering lifelong learning programs. And last but not least, SDG 5, gender equality, and empower women and girls. On a global level, this is, of course, very important. For new participants, please mute your microphone. Thank you so much. So this is the people side of sustainability with 5 SDGs. We go to the planet side of sustainability, so environmental, ecological sustainability. Here you see we start with 6, SDG 6, availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation. So a very important topic, of course, not only globally, but also locally. And then we jump to 12, and 12 is in the heart of companies, ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. So this text is about circular economy and emphasizes the important role of companies in this perspective. Then 13 is about climate change, of course, also a key topic in sustainability today. 14 is about the link with our oceans and seas, and to keep them clean, and also to take care of the marine resources. And last but not least, 15 is about biodiversity. Biodiversity is the alter ego of 13. With the current biodiversity loss, we have also created more and more problems in the field of CO2 and vice versa. So those are the 5 SDGs at risk from an environmental perspective. Then we have 5 prosperity SDGs, and this is also very important, I think. I'm very glad that in the text we have also the part of economic and financial sustainability, the business case. I'm convinced that working as a company on sustainability, this can strengthen your business case today and tomorrow. So you see here affordable and clean energy, investing in affordable and clean energy, indeed creating jobs and working on economic growth in such a way that it is decoupled from environmental harm. 9 is about innovation, industrial innovation and infrastructure. 10 is about reducing inequalities between regions and countries from a financial perspective. And 11 is the link with global issues such as biodiversity, CO2 and others, and the local communities, how we can be a good citizen as companies in our local communities. So those are the 5 SDGs linked with prosperity creation, with economic, financial prosperity. And last but not least, we have the P of peace and the P of partnership. Those are the 2 new P's in this agenda. And as you can see, when we look at the P of peace, you see in the logo immediately already 3 words: peace, justice, and strong institutions. So this means this is a pillar, a dimension of sustainability that is broad. It's about peaceful societies, it's about access to justice, and it's about organizing actors in society in an effective, accountable way that is transparent. And then partnership, you see only 1 word, partnerships for the goals, but in concreto in the text, it's a large chapter in the text where it's about the means of implementation and international development cooperation. I will come back to that later on. Those are 2 new dimensions of sustainable development that companies also need to take into account. When we summarize the structure